All right, welcome everybody. We are so glad that you are here with us today. Thanks for joining. We will get started with intros, and I know some folks will keep trickling in as the minutes tick by here. So, again, my name is Cecilia Deem. I'm the director of the Center for Civil Society, as well as the director of donor advisory at AmPhil. And our mission at the Center for Civil Society is to strengthen and increase the knowledge and efficacy of America's nonprofit organizations. Why does that matter? Because nonprofits have an incredibly important role to play in our vision of a renewed American culture, one of generosity, fellowship, and liberty. So, to that end, we provide trainings and free resources like this one, where we ask experts to come and share their wisdom. So, I've got two experts with me here today. I have Stephanie Danselmi joining me. I think she prefers Steph, so I'll say Steph Danselmi, coming from lovely Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. She is a director of one of AmPhil's East Coast consulting groups, where she runs, guides, and advises on fundraising strategies, ranging from major gifts and foundations to launching integrated direct response campaigns, which is what she'll be lending her expertise to today. Also joining me is senior digital strategist Mott Brown. Mott is coming from Greenville, South Carolina, right? Is it
That's right.
Greenville or Greenville?
It's Greenville.
It's Greenville, not Greenville. Okay.
It's
Greenville,
both.
Carolina. It's both. Okay. Okay. Um, he has just recently joined AmPhil. He's got 25 years of experience in both traditional and digital media. His experience includes running digital for a presidential campaign, large, very recognizable medical organizations, rescue missions, food banks, etc. And he is just, as I mentioned, just joined us this year, and we are so excited to have him here. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Steph to take us away and ask how can we and should we be thinking about digital as our fundraising strategy?
Thank you, Celia. Well, I love talking about email more than most things, so I'm really excited to be here today. But more than anything, I'm excited that we finally have Mott here at AmPhil to support us in thinking more holistically. It's not just direct mail and email. There are so many other channels that you can be using to raise all of the boats in your fundraising and your general communications with your donors and your other audience members. This is a well-timed webinar because we're only 12 weeks away from Giving Tuesday. So we do often start getting a lot of questions from our clients about how they can prepare around this time or more likely next month or right before Giving Tuesday. But if you're already thinking about that and you're thinking, gee, I really need to get my digital act together, this is the webinar for you. So sometimes it can be a little bit of an afterthought. Today, we want it to be the main thing that we're thinking about, the digital and how that can support all of your other work with your foundations, major gifts, and especially mail. So Mott, how do you think about the full picture when we talk about digital?
Well, that's great. That's why we're here. Think holistically about your communications, your communication channels. Um, we've all heard the communications rule at right person, right time, right message. But today you need more than that. You need multiple impressions. And digital done well really gets you there. And so we're going to be talking about thinking, 3 months, 6 months, year-long communication strategy where you're not only planning direct mail, but you're thinking about what that means for your website, what that looks like for email communications, your social, and then plugging in some digital ads. Um, because the data is there, and I'll just share uh, the benchmark data that when you do digital and direct mail, there you get a 30 to 40% lift in response, and that means conversion, not just awareness or leads or visits or anything like that. You get a 30 to 40% lift in response than just doing direct mail alone. Um, so we're going to kind of walk through the connection points and how that all looks together.
Yeah, I think one thing that would be really helpful while we go through this, a lot of you probably are the only ones thinking about digital at your organization or one of a few. I know that was my experience before coming here, even though I was full-time doing email fundraising, there were very few of us who were really thinking about digital. in the forefront of the organization. So if you're here as someone who doesn't have people to ask questions to within your own organization, please connect with each other. Take a second just to drop your name, who you are, your title, organization, anything you want to share in the chat here, because this is all about building relationships, and that speaks to the webinar as well as what we want to do with the rest of our digital work today. But I think something that you could do over the next 1 hour is just suspend disbelief. We have a lot of people who have their CEO or their board chair saying things like, oh, 3 emails in December, that's just too much. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to get the unsubscribes. I don't want people to be annoyed with me, etc. You get all of this ideas in your head about what your readers might be experiencing based on what you think you would feel if you received this type of communication. So just think about the fact that the average nonprofit sends 30 solicitations every year, and that's just the average. So there are groups spending a lot more than that. Think about that and suspend disbelief. Just imagine for a moment, this is the right thing for your organization. Digital will work for you, whether you are a think tank, if you're feeding the hungry, whatever it is that you're doing, there's a place for this. So there are so many different channels to talk about, lots of tactics that we could tackle. What would you think about first, Mont?
Well, that's a great intro because you need multiple impressions, and now more than ever. But I would start with the website because what the website is your hub. Your website is where offline and digital efforts converge, and so you need to do your website really well. And if you don't know, if the visitor doesn't know what to do or what you want them to do, and who you are, like really in the first 3 to 5 seconds, you've lost them. So your website, you just need to focus on doing one thing really well. So you can do a lot of things with your website, and you have to do a lot of things with your website. You have to communicate many things, but you really need to strategically think about what is that one thing that you're trying to communicate. So say you have like a content website. And you have a lot of content to promote on your website that you want to display. Well, you need to go deeper than that. You really do need to think about what is that presentation, what is that one piece that's going to get somebody engaged, it's going to capture their attention. And you really need to think about that if you are a mission-oriented organization. What is going to capture their attention right when they land on there? Tell them who you are and why they should care. So it goes back, your website can do a lot of things, but you have to do one thing exceptionally well. Is that donations? Is that lead gen? Or is that event signups? And you need to think through that. And then there's another level to that as well. And that's how it works when you are communicating your throughout the year with your campaigns. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, so it's really that welcome mat. No matter what their experience with you is going to be, it's highly likely that at some point they're going to land on your website. Especially, I know we have a lot of think tanks here. We're publishing white papers or daily articles and other online publications like that. So how do you think about prioritizing email? What does it look like to really lean into that? As for instance, you said you got to pick one thing, say it's going to be email lead gen.
Yeah, it's lower barrier. And so when you think about turning anonymous visitors into supporters, or people you want to volunteer or you want to engage with you, you really want to think through how you're going to capture their email. And there are multiple ways you can do that. You can, depending on your organization, insider info. What can you think about with your organization and your mission that you can gatekeep behind an email? It needs to be something of value. It needs to be a guide to. It could be a donor insider. It could be, not ministry insider information. So just think through that resource of value, because you have it, that you can use to capture their email. And it could be used. You could do this as a light box or a pop-up, or it could be very central on your website. But that's where I would start.
And that can even be the newsletter itself for some of, especially these policy groups. It might be a big ask to say, put your email address in here to get the white paper. The white paper is kind of the mission. You want everyone to get that. You might not necessarily want to put that behind the email, um, the sort of email box, but you could do something like get our weekly reminder, et cetera, et cetera. So people can engage with even the newsletter as a lead generating object.
The only thing I would add to that is you really have to sell it.
Mhm.
Don't just stick it on there and just expect people to go there and put their email in. You have to sell it. Emails are valuable. People know that. So you really do have to kind of make it front and center, tell them why it's valuable, tell them why they need it. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be sign up right now to get our weekly newsletter, right? That's what like every other website says. You want to actually have some sort of a value proposition. This is something that
Exactly.
we do when we do a digital audit for a client is go through all their newsletter products and say, what is the value proposition of this specific newsletter product? And that really would lead into what you want to say on your website about why someone should sign up for it. So I know you're saying most visitors are not necessarily going to give you their email address right away, and probably not even many. You could say some small portion of those would be a really big victory. What happens to the
Mhm.
rest of the people on your website? They're coming, they're not choosing to give their email address. Is it just one and done? See ya.
Yeah, that's the next thing, right? We're talking about website as the welcome mat. Is we're talking about as the hub. You have a lot of anonymous viewers that come to your site. If they don't give you their email, they don't donate, how can you follow up? Well, the answer is you do a retargeting pixel. You can do that through Facebook, you can do that through Google. Really simple way to you put a pixel on the in the code on your website. And you're all familiar with this when you go on a website and then you click away to something else and you start seeing ads um, for that website that you just visited. This is the same principle. And so what you want to think through here is what's going to be that offer. Uh, it could be seasonal, it could be evergreen, it could be your silver bullet offer, but it needs to be thought through strategically. What's going to work very well when they've just visited your site through some sort of other promotion, whether it's direct mail, an event, or even earned media. How can you follow up through ads? And the great thing about retargeting is it's not that expensive. You can start with a lower budget, um, and you can start with your warm audiences, like those who visit your website, like those on your email list, who haven't given or who are lapsed. So that would be the way, the simple way to follow up if they didn't give their email.
Yeah, and that's something that sometimes you might get a little bit icked by, right? Oh, there's gonna be a Facebook pixel right there in my website. I'm concerned about the privacy of my users, et cetera. Those people are on the internet and they have really come to expect that you are doing the work to get to know them. So at this point, we're getting past, oh, maybe you should try this. Oh, most people are trying this to I can't believe you don't have a pixel on your website. That's kind of the level that we're at right now. So it's not as difficult as it probably sounds like it is to make it happen. Matt can always speak more into how you make that part of a holistic strategy, but it's a great, great place to start in terms of getting to know your audience in the way that a modern audience really expects to be known. So we want to do the work because it's all about relationships, right? So you're putting all this effort into getting people onto your email list, onto your website, tracking who they are, where they're coming from, et cetera. You can just drop them into a newsletter and forget it now, right?
Yeah, that's so. It, you have them, and when I go onto a client, I'll seed myself just to see what they're doing in their with their comms efforts. And I really am amazed at how many times I have given an organization my email and have received nothing.
Mm.
So when you ask for an email uh, and you don't send the communication immediately or at least soon, and even multiple communications, you really do lose credibility and you lose opportunity. Um, so don't be the org that doesn't follow up with an email, with an email right away, an immediate email to say welcome, a series of emails that introduces you, that shows your impact. This is about opportunity, and even will give immediate opportunity to support you. So you can create a welcome series that's very effective, and it creates also an expectation too of how many emails they will receive. And you have to think, like Steph said before, that you're giving them an opportunity to get to know you. Your organization has meaning. You don't want to back away from that. You want to communicate that, and you communicate that strongly, and even more strongly with donors. So if someone gives, that's just another opportunity to welcome them, to thank them, to show their impact if they gave a gift, and then to ask for a second gift. Don't be shy. They gave to you. They want to support you. You're telling them how, you're thanking them, and you're being upfront about the need, and 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 people respond.
Yeah, I mean, people are not assuming that they're solving the whole mission, the whole problem with their first $60 gifts. They're not going to be surprised when you go back and ask them for more. I love that you say put it right in the welcome series in the second ask strategy, make an automation specifically for a second ask. It's so aggressive, but it's so, I mean, they're asking you to engage with them in this way. It's like when you're at a restaurant, you're not tipping in 3 months, you're tipping right now. I just had a great meal and I'm going to tip right now. I just donated and I'm going to go ahead and become a monthly donor right now. You
Oh,
know, I
yeah.
donated $100. You're asking me now, will you make that commitment every month, $10 a month? Now you've just gotten 120 and 100 in the same exact ask strategy. So it's super important to be bold when it comes to digital. Just think about all the emails that you don't read too. So it's not like everyone is opening every single email the way that you're thinking about them. You're sending them out and crafting them, and they're so important to you as the author. You might only see one of those if you're the reader on the other side. You might see none. You might only see the subject lines, which in themselves are very, very important for brand impressions. But it's really, really good to get out there and to be aggressive. Now, those are kind of the two easiest automations that we can recommend, right? Do you have any stories from your experience of people who are using or organizations using automations more in a more sophisticated manner than that?
Yeah, yeah, that really is the follow-up there, right? Is that you need to think through your email comms over at least 3 to 6 months, even a year out. Because, we say that you need to be open and ask, but there is such a thing as file fatigue. There is such a thing as asking too much depending on their segmentation. For example, your major donors versus your low dollar donors. You want to make sure that you are going about your email communications strategically. And that means you are thinking through segmentation. And that means that you are going to send your cadence differently depending on that segment. It means that you are going to communicate to them differently. For the major donors, you might want to think of not sending too much, but you don't ignore them. For your monthly donors, you want to think through how you're going to cultivate your monthly donors and bring them in with your tentpole campaigns. So all of that you need to think through from, like I said, a 3 to 6 month to an even annual perspective. And that's the way that you can send a lot more and give more impressions without fatiguing the file. The other thing I will say to that is your exclusions. Like Steph just said, you send, let's say you send 10,000 people, and you have a really strong open rate of 35, 40%. Well, that still leaves a lot of people who didn't open. Let's say you had a really strong a response to it, there's still a lot of people who didn't respond. And by going about it and being careful with your segmentation, your exclusions, and your cadence, you can send more, get more impressions, and you can raise more money.
Yeah, and I love that what you said wasn't suppress your major donors, but think strategically about the messaging that they're getting. So we often do send fewer emails to major donors in the end of year than to the general audience, but we never ever recommend suppressing them entirely. We have seen people give $20,000 based on an email. And it's not that you can expect that, but you're just getting this sign that major donors are paying attention. If there's someone giving $50,000 to you every year, they're giving you 50,000 reasons to keep in contact with them. If you have their email address and you're regularly giving them newsletters, they're expecting updates from you about your end of year giving campaign. It might just look a little bit different. It might look like you're saying, hey, you are a stakeholder at our organization. I wanted to let you know about this challenge that is launching tomorrow. And you share the challenge still. You still share the link. It's all in there. If they want to give, they can. And statistically, they do. Go ahead and make a gift even from an email, but just make sure you're thinking about personalizing, especially for the major gift audience. Now, when you're thinking of personalizing, what sorts of fields do you think are most important if you are trying to set up a bit of a relationship between your CRM and your email system?
Well, it's their history. It really is their donor history, their engagement history. You can just do so much by looking at their engagement history with the organization. Today, there's a Google and Yahoo shift with email in particular that we could mention here because it's really helpful, where they penalize organizations who are sending to disengaged audiences. And that's another strategy point for organizations they need to take into consideration. If you're continuing to send to everybody, even non-openers, who say non-openers, those who haven't engaged in a year or maybe a year and a half, you're not going to get an inbox placement. And you're going to get into more spam boxes. And so that change is an important change for organizations to know about. And you have to have a strategy moving forward with sending to your engaged audience, your engaged file, while not ignoring those who haven't opened or you're lapsed. So you're going to take a domain hit, you're going to take an IP reputation hit, but you have to do it, or you can't prospect, you can't re-engage. But you have to think through it strategically. You have to know your domain reputation. You have to know if you're getting into inboxes. And so that's a knowledge base that we have and specialize in.
Yeah, we work really hard at AmFil to make sure that you never have to feel like you need to become a specialist or an expert in everything to be successful. We always want to bring it back to the lowest common denominator. Like, how does this thing that Mott is going to help you discover play into the relationship that you have with your donor base? So never lose sight of the relationship. But there are, in particular with these digital strategies, a lot of little things like that you may not be able to keep on top of on your own, little algorithm tweaks, etc. So I appreciate any tips and trips there for sure. Now, when you're thinking about that domain reputation, what kinds of emails can you send to make sure that you're giving the right blend of fundraising and cultivation, etc., so people stay engaged?
Yeah, that's right. We did get one question before I move on. When did Yahoo Google shift happen? It happened last year in early 2024. And we've seen it client-wide, where we really did have to do a shift. Donations went down, open rates went down. So that strategy is really important. Now, to get back to what you just asked, Steph, this kind of goes to that too. It's really important to mix in cultivation and fundraising and have the right mix to do it, because you're mixing in mission-oriented emails and bringing value there. You can also do that in your fundraising and mix that in. It's not just about tactics. It's about providing value in your fundraising emails, but you do that primarily through cultivation. And what I mean by that are emails like newsletters, stories, impact emails, emails communicating your wins, and mixing that into your cadence. What we have found is that you really can't send too many. Like if you think about your fundraising, or we're already sending too many fundraising emails, we don't mix anything in. We've actually studied this where, let's say you have a very aggressive email strategy and an email cadence where you're sending, I don't know, 16 fundraising emails a month. And you say, oh, well, we don't want to send any more emails. We have done that, and we've added cultivation emails on top of that. Fundraising, the response rate went up actually, because you're communicating that value, and that's super important to send emails that do not have asks. Your supporters want to see those. So yeah, thanks for that question, Steph.
Yeah, I think that is something that that's the biggest stumbling block that I hear people share when you're starting to get into email digital, trying to add on a bit more nuance to your overall digital or direct response package. It's that fear of sending too many emails, and it's almost never the case that you are sending too much email. And even any of the things we're talking about, like don't send too many of this, add this in instead. If you walk away from this and you hear Mott says I should send 16 emails a month and a lot of them should be cultivation, and that overwhelms you to the degree where you don't send your weekly email that you regularly send because you're trying to create this perfect strategy, you're getting the wrong message. We want to empower you to send more emails almost in every case. I think that is a little particular too to the sector. Some sectors are really, really high volume when it comes to email. Everyone generally can send more, but what type of sector would you say is known for sending the most email? Where do you see that high response?
But the highest is political. We all get them. I think we're still getting them. But when I was working on the presidential campaign, we would send up to 5 emails a day, but we would do it strategically, and we felt free to do it. You have to monitor your unsubscribe, and you have to make sure that that doesn't go through the roof. You test and you probe and you prod, and that's where we found we could send up to 5 a day as long as we did it strategically, as long as we had our exclusions in place, as long as we had segmentations in place. You can do just so much more when you add strategy to your communications plan. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
start finding out who are your true believers and sending to them more frequently too, right? Because you look at that unsubscribe and then you change your whole strategy based on the 0.09% of people who unsubscribed. And then you don't change your strategy at all based on the 25% of people who open the email, right? So we just want to flip that a little
that's
bit.
right. Well, and also a rule of thumb is that the more leads you have, the bigger your file, the more emails you can send. That's just a rule of thumb. So if you have a very small file, you do have to be more strategic. You do have to be more careful, but you can still do it in a way that you get the most out of your opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are benchmarks that you can find online if you're worried about your unsubscribes, even as a 10,000 person list, 1,000 person list.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to know what's kind of normal. If you're seeing, 6 people unsubscribe and thinking this is the end of the world, go check out the M&R benchmark report, see how you stand against other groups. The average is actually a lot higher than you'd probably guess.
So the other thing I would just add to that is, and this might make folks uncomfortable, but you do want to push the limit here. And that's kind of what we did when we came in and took over a presidential campaign. We wanted to see what the file could take. And that's important. That's not bad. That's good. You want to use data points to figure out what your file can take. And we did that. And when you do that and you do it in a smart way, you do it in a responsible way, you're going to see a better return.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We also have a lot of groups in the freedom movement, and I always say to them, The unsubscribe button is like the most democratic feature, right? They will tell you if they don't want to be on your list. Just give them that freedom, give them that responsibility to let you know if they want to be on your list or not. So I love all of that email stuff, and it's so, so important. Let's talk about the slightly more mysterious part to many of us, social media. So a recent Google study found that 90% of people use 3 devices to complete a single task. I've found that to be true. I just bought a house. I'm looking for shelves. I've searched on every digital possible screen in my house for shelves. It's just always something I'm thinking about. So think about something that you've been making a decision about, whether you did that completely on your desktop, your laptop, your phone, etc. But most people, 90% of people, use 3 devices. So we can't forget about those other channels that pop up in other parts of people's lives. How should nonprofits think about social media?
Well, I think most nonprofits should think that social media is not an ROI factory. You're just really not going to get a lot of direct attributable donations through social media. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean you can't catch lightning in a bottle and really leverage social media in that way. You can. Crowdfunding. There are certain organizations that are better situated for social media and fundraising. But usually a nonprofit should think of social media as relational, a way to engage even different and different groups of people, right? So different group for each platform, for X or for Facebook, and you really need to come up with that strategy to communicate and engage. But when I go and I'll do an audit of a nonprofit or an organization, I'll look at their social, I'll look at how many followers they have, I'll look at what they're doing, what their update schedule is like, how they're doing their updates, how they're doing their posts. And the one thing I'll say there is that you want to be consistent. You want to establish a cadence and keep it. You want to be credible. You want to engage, like I said. It's a gathering place. It's not a megaphone. And the way you can leverage social media is tie in campaigns. You can, like Steph mentioned earlier, with your Giving Tuesday, you can make sure that you are leveraging your influence on social media with a Giving Tuesday campaign, because by now everyone's aware of Giving Tuesday. It's actually a really good way to get those that have never given before to give and to engage. And you can use social media for that. And that kind of I can transition now to using boosted posts well. Facebook isn't going to show your post to everybody. They're just not. You have to spend money. It doesn't take a lot of money, $50, $100, but you do need to boost your post to get that engagement, so that you can reach more broadly your audience. And that's just your audience. You can go beyond there with a paid strategy that uses a lookalike audience, so that you can grow your followers, you can bring them in and cultivate them in a way so that you can generate leads and donations, even though it's not an ROI-driven platform.
Yeah, I think that's something that people have a lot of anxiety about, is spending on something where they can't immediately say it earned X dollars back. But you have to just keep thinking back to those statistics about how much more people give when they're addressed on multiple platforms. I mean, I think there's one study that was done recently that said there's a 494% increase in the order rate for people who utilized 3 channels. I think that was for businesses, but it gets the point across for sure. Now, a lot of people used to get a lot more bang for their buck on these ads. Obviously, things are a little bit more expensive now, or maybe not obviously. You could let me know if I'm wrong, but something that I've heard from a number of clients is, oh, we used to get more leads. That's why we used to have 30,000 people in our email, and then 40, and then 50, and now we're kind of just at like 32,000 all the time. It's these people are unsubscribing organically. People are finding us again on our website, but we don't do lead gen anymore because it's too expensive compared to something that they experienced in the past. So how do you help people decide if it's a good idea for them to invest in some paid social media, even if they have had a different experience with it before?
Well, you can do it rather cheaply, actually, if you're targeting the right audience. The typical rule of thumb, and this is just the media side, is $1,000 per platform. So if you're buying media on social, $1,000 minimum. If you want to add CTV in there, it's another 1,000. If you want to add Google in there, it's another 1,000. So it's a general rule of thumb is that if you're targeting one platform, it's about $1,000 minimum, and that's just the media buy. But you can do it in a way that's really smart and worthwhile. I mentioned it before with your website. You want to start with your warm audiences. You want to start with your lapsed donors. You want to start with with those folks who are visiting your website, especially who are coming in from an acquisition campaign, from really a tentpole a house file campaign, email clickers that haven't converted. You want to start with that warm audience, and you will see a higher ROI from that audience. And that's where I would start. It's not necessarily where you want to finish, because once you do that and you get that program set and really doing well as a retargeting tool, as a complement to your email, as a complement to your direct mail, then you can expand from there, and you can expand in ways for acquisition. So that's where I would start, though, with your warm audiences first.
That makes sense. And that really speaks to the ROI question too. It's you think about all of the water that's falling out of the bucket. You're putting so much effort to getting these new acquisition leads in through your direct mail campaigns and bringing new prospects in through your various channels. And then you're not hitting them up in this way where you know that you can get them to see one of your posts. It's also simply a way that you can cut through the noise on a really busy day. You don't get upset that everybody is doing Giving Tuesday or everybody is online December 31st, et cetera. It doesn't mean that it's a bad day to do an advertisement. It means that's something that can help you get in front of this audience that's being hit up by everybody, right?
Yeah, that's right.
A really good time to test if you haven't done that before. We actually just had a client get a $200,000 check off of a tweet. So if that's not more reason for you to remember social media, I don't know what is. Of course, that's not normal. You can't expect that. But it's just a good reminder about the relationship. This was a group where they only had maybe 1,000 people in their email list. They were trying to raise $25,000 and they were just stuck at like $1,700 because they're emailing them over and over, but there's only 1,000 people in there. They're not all donors. Only a few of them have a history of donating. So they sort of got stuck and they posted on Twitter, not that they were stuck, they just shared the positive momentum, right? And they had a donor say, well, why don't I just, 10x that? So the real reminder is not that you can get 200K off of Twitter. You probably won't, but your donors are on these platforms. If you think that they're not, just go search for them. Try to find any of your donors on there. See if the first five, if one of your top 5 donors comes up on social media, that's just a good reminder for you. And the other thing that you can think about when you're doing your first ads is that you can figure out what your competition is doing too. So if you're trying to make the case to your CEO, to your chief of finance that you want to invest just $1,000 on every platform, go show them what your direct competitor is doing on Facebook. You can go onto the transparency feature on their page and see all the ads that are currently running. So it should be something that you can use to make the case for at least testing out some paid social media.
That's right. And once you get the return and can prove it out, you want to expand it from there. I mean, digital's great for that way. Digital's really good for acquisition. So you can take these audiences, take those that are your donors, and you can create lookalike audiences on through these platforms for programmatic ads. You can certainly do that on Facebook, and then you test that. You test what campaign is going to resonate with them. Typically it's your silver bullet or a tentpole campaign could be a match, and you want to take that and use that campaign to do acquisition as well in the digital space. So that would be the way you expand beyond just your warm audiences using digital.
Yeah, you can literally copy and paste your best donors and your best, most engaged readers. You want more people like Celia, look-alike audience based on that kind of giver. So it's really awesome that you can use that feature.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm.
So what about other paid places? Like what else do you add into your full plan for the year? You're doing some email, you're working on your website, you've done a little bit of paid social media advertising. What else do you need to do?
Well, you can add in SMS. SMS is a great proven platform to send text that to get people to click through. It has an extremely high open rate and extremely high click-through rate. Yeah, here again, you have to be strategic and careful with it. But once you get your file used to receiving text from you, it can be very beneficial and a great add-on to your direct mail and your email.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. So how do you decide where to put an advertisement if you're adding something else to the mix?
Um, you mean like an SMS?
Well, actually, yeah, let's stay with the texting for a minute. Yeah, everyone got so used to that during the election. And I think a lot of people also have that kind of fear of, oh, I got really annoyed at this or that candidate that texted me all the time. But there's a reason that they were texting, right? Like you weren't sending that many texts from your presidential candidate because people were not reading them, not opening them, right? And of course, it's not an election year right now, so we have a little bit more bandwidth in our inboxes, in our phone inboxes, if you will. So what do you do if you're wanting to get into SMS? I think a lot of us wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. SMS that's a great question, actually, because there is a lot of confusion out there about who you can text to, who you can't text to. The FCC has a rule that you can't text anyone that hasn't opted in, but most of your file has already opted in, and so you can send those texts to them. And there are great platforms out there. Tatango is one that you can use internally at Amphil. We have our preferred platform that we use, and really can get that going for you very easily, actually. If you have phone numbers on your file. So if you have phone numbers, you can add that element into your communications mix. If you don't, you can append phone numbers to it. So we provide a service where you can do the append and from really soup to nuts get the SMS going.
So you don't have to think of opting in as something that someone does by each channel. You think of opting in as something they do as an individual. So they're on your email address, your privacy policy covers it. Now you can text
That's
them.
right.
So even if you have
That's
to pay to get those phone numbers, you already have permission to reach out.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it's probably because of that MailChimp is now able to do some SMS right from within your MailChimp account, right? So even if you don't have a fancy system, you haven't tried the Cadillac of possible systems that you could use, you probably have a place that you could do some testing right within your MailChimp if you're using MailChimp.
That's right.
Using Constant Contact, I'm not sure what type of SMS capabilities they have. Usually they're a little bit more behind the ball compared to MailChimp, but I'm sure there's still something you can do. I don't know if you have a recommendation, Mott, would you try to use whatever's built into the program that you have, or would you go straight to this Tatango kind of program that only does SMS?
Tatango is a great tool for texting, so I would recommend that. It's you can certainly use a platform like MailChimp to do it. It depends on the cost, and so that's a factor in there. It depends on the strategy behind it, and so those are factors you would consider if you need someone to do that for you. We're certainly available and can use our preferred provider for that. That has a very competitive cost, and so those are considerations. But yeah, you could explore that.
Yeah, I love that. One of the ways that you were talking about it when we were preparing for this was you're sharing, thinking of all these different channels as ways to actually decrease fatigue. So it's not like, oh, they're getting so many emails, they're now getting these texts, they're getting our letter, it's too much. It's more like they're seeing something blue, something red, something green. It actually helps to decrease fatigue a little bit, to get at them from multiple channels.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, people,
About
everybody, we consume media differently. Some people prefer email. Some people love I mean, many people still love getting that direct mail, that tactical. I mean, that the feel of the piece. It's direct mail, they say, is very deep, very personal, whereas digital is very frequency oriented or impression based. And people just consume it differently. And so when you're exploring and you're expanding your communications channels, you are increasing your opportunity and you're increasing your impressions, and you will see a lift when you do it and do it well. Especially, and I think what you were asking before, Steph, is a when question. And it's a great question. It's like, take Giving Tuesday, for example. If you have digital ads, if you're already doing digital ads, you want to take a few days around Giving Tuesday and spend about 40% of your ad budget just in those few days. And think about a match campaign, or think about a direct mail campaign whether it's the end of the year or it's end of the fiscal year and you have a match going on. When you add digital to that and you infuse money into digital ads, or incorporate social and really ramp up your email and do it in a very strategic way that doesn't exhaust the file, you're going to see a big return on that.
Yeah, you have to think about it all together. These are the major donors that you're already asking, will you be my matching gift, lead gift? It's going back into the digital campaign, and you want to really hit them holistically. So thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise with us today, Mott. We've covered website, email, social, digital ads, a little bit of everything, and it all helps to raise the boat from your direct response strategy. So with that, we want to take a few questions, but I also want to note that if you want to talk more specifically about your organizations, things that you are going through, questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to Mott or myself. I'm putting our email addresses right in the chat. So first question that we have from the audience: can you use a nonprofit Google ad grant to fuel the pixel? Are those two features related?
That's a really good question. I didn't cover Google a grant, but I don't know if I understand the question correctly. Is it the retargeting pixel? I think the Google ad grant
Maybe
is a
the
little bit.
question here is to actually add the pixel to your website doesn't cost any money, right? But now that you've got the pixel, can you use that to get better results with your Google ad grant?
I'd have to look that up. I don't really know whether or not you can put a retargeting pixel on your website using a Google ad grant. I don't know the specific answer to that question, but wow, it's a very good question. Yeah, I'll have to look into that and respond somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the first time that you're hearing about the Google grant, everyone, you should take a look at that.
I know that there are some pretty tight restrictions around the Google grant. So I bet it could be. I'd have to look that up though. I don't know the answer to that.
How about this one? What's the best strategy for signers on emails? Do you want it always coming from an individual or from the organization, the same all the time?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think you do want to establish a signer to emails from a person and not just an organization. However, mixing it up, it can be a very good thing. And even mixing up the signatures from different leaders in the organization can be good as well. Whenever you can use a tactic like it's called the from tactic, because it matters. If they just see the same from address all the time, or same from person, I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You have consistency, expectations, and all that. But when you can mix in a different from, whether it's the organization, whether it's another leader in there, that's a really good tactic to use every once in a while to get that open.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't mean that you have to be a really well-known personality. If you have well-known personalities, use them if you can, especially for
Mhm.
online publications. But, even Scott at X organization is a great personalization. It's much better than always just sending from the org name. How about A/B testing? Do you have any tips about A/B testing to help open
Oh.
roles?
Yeah, A/B testing, obviously, it's a great it's a great way to figure out your file and what they respond to. So I would highly recommend A/B testing for an organization. If you haven't done it, most have.
Mhm.
Once you've done it and you know what they respond to, like whether it's a personalized subject line, whether it's, Steph, we need your help in this way or something like that. Although you don't want to say help. But once you find that works, you can't overdo it. You really do need a mix. You need a mix of about 5 types of subject lines. Personalization is one of them. And if you find that your file really responds to that, use it and use it often. But you can't use it every time. It just you kind of get subject line blindness if you use it every time. So you want to mix in different types of subject lines, like the mysterious. You can use you want to use urgent. You want to use key phrases, whether it's a match or double your impact or something like that. So yes, A/B subject works. It lets you know what your file responds to, but then you got to work in a good mix and a good cadence with your subject line types.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're also probably A/B testing for something like length. I mean, how do you think about email length? Is there one length every email should be? Do you have different types of emails that you like to see different lengths?
There are some, well, yeah, I mean, you can go and you can Google for subject line testers, and I use and our team uses multiple. Um, and it tests for length, it tests for spam words, it tests for everything, so it gives you a score. So if your organization that wants to get the best subject lines possible, just plug them into the testers, and they're pretty good. But I wouldn't use just one. You really do need multiple to get the best subject line.
Yeah, and how about once you're actually in the email? We do a lot of kind of plain text or simple text fundraising emails here. You're always mixing it up, but say you're just thinking of a standard email. Is it good to try to hit a certain word count or to keep it?
Mm.
How do you think about that in the body of the email?
The body, we've seen anything work. Short emails, long form emails work, but what you really do need to do is write good emails. And you need to make sure that you are drawing the reader down the page. And you do that with tactically, with highlights, with images, with when I say highlights, I mean underlines and bold, call outs. And we have an expertise in that, so that we make sure that we're drawing the reader down the email, that they're consuming it, and that they take action. It does take, here again, it takes testing. If you haven't done that before, you need really good copy. You need to know when to put the ask in, follow the format of need solution, and then work in other tactics. Like you were saying, Steph, plain text. Something that works is sending an email, and then using a plain text forward tactic, saying, "Hey, we really need you to read this email and respond," or just something simple like that. So um, it's more about the content and drawing that reader down the page than it is about length.
Yeah, that makes sense. And test it with different audiences too. Sometimes I've seen in the past, for whatever reason, one group I was working with, the lapsed donors appreciated the longer text and prospects appreciated a shorter text. So there really isn't any
Good.
of just one thing, right? The only thing you want to avoid probably is getting cut off by Gmail because you just went so long and put so many images in there that they're not seeing your whole email. That I would say is the one. So how about channels? Frank is asking here, when you're using different channels to contact a donor, what should the cadence look like? One email a month, direct mail the following month, etc. How do you kind of think about the whole donor journey?
Yeah. Well, your digital is going to be higher frequency, like I was mentioning before. And I think I'd say the larger the file, the more you can do. So I would think about it like this, like if you're thinking of email and SMS, let's say you have a cadence where you're sending one direct mail a month, you're sending 4 to 8 emails, and that's not too many. With a cadence like that, you could do 1 to 2 text messages. Your ads, you need to think of more evergreen and more budget than cadence. But that gives you just a kind of a good feel of cadence with direct mail, email, and including SMS, which is a direct, contact there. Social, here again, you just have to, you can do so much with that. So many posts a day. You just have to kind of think it through and then keep the expectation. If that's what you have, a high frequency there, the more you can do and engage an audience, grow your followers through tactics and budget. So that's a little bit different animal, but that should give you an idea of your cadence.
Yeah, that's great. And how about if you are a tiny organization, right? You're like under 100K, you're the only one running the organization, you have a little tiny budget to try some paid advertising or social or something. You can only do one thing to make your results better at the end of the year. What would you do?
Is email included in that? Or
Sure.
is that just
It's just, it's time and money, right? You don't have enough time and you don't have a very big budget, but you have enough time and money to try something new. What should it be?
then I would probably think through, if you don't have anything going on, you don't have a list, you don't have a file, I would think through a proprietary list rental and spending money to do that. That's probably been the best ROI in terms of digital acquisition, is to find a like organization willing to rent their list to you for lead capture or for donations. We have seen up to a 1.5 to 1 ROI on that, which is unheard of when you're trying to acquire digitally. So that's what I would pursue first.
Yeah,
That's
great.
hard, but that's what I would do.
Well, that's a wealth of knowledge. I hope that you're all able to act on at least one of these tidbits today. I think the overarching message that I'm hearing is you need to send emails and you need to write great emails. So thanks for all of your time, Celia. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you both so much. I wanted to just point out, in 50 years from now, people are going to ask you, where were you on November 5th and 6th, 2025? The reason being that that is the 5th annual Givers, Doers, and Thinkers Conference in Philadelphia. It's going to be our biggest conference yet, and I really encourage you to come. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, and those of you on this webinar can take 15% off the reg price with the code Civil Society when you check out. So please consider doing that. And lastly, just thank you so much, Mott and Steph. This was great and really informative. I've honestly learned something. And I am looking forward to putting it into action in my communications cadence with my husband. So thank you guys so much. For those of you whose questions we didn't get answered, please feel free to follow up directly with Steph and Mott, whose emails are both in the chat. Thanks all.